Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today I'm joined by Sean Lang of Agency Uplift and the Social Commerce Club. So you're a podcast host and an agency owner. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Very good. I'm excited to chat with you today, fellow agency owner and podcast host. So
Yeah, we've got some overlap. We got some synergy here.
yeah, and you were also mentioning that we're recording right now, episode 67, and you mentioned that you're also at that same level. So it's very funny. It was a lot of parallels between you and I, and we kind of
Yeah,
probably deal with the same issues and pain points. So I'm happy to discuss that today. I'm actually really excited because you're talking to something that's very near and dear to my heart: how to scale an agency, and really it's just how to scale any kind of business, digital business, in the e-commerce space or otherwise. How to build teams efficiently, right? That's kind of your background.
yeah. I mean, one thing that you kind of realize, building an agency is where you really realize it. But building any kind of business whatsoever is that, in general, I think one of your biggest tool, your biggest resource, the most leverage you have is going to be in the people at the end of the day. And so, you really see that especially with agencies. I mean, I always say on my podcast, and also too, like I also coach agency owners as well, and I say to my clients that like it's a people business. You're basically a team of people, and you're selling expertise to a group of people who need that expertise, and it's just people. There's no real like overhead. You don't need a warehouse. You're not selling widgets. You don't have like cost of production aside from just whatever it takes to deliver that service. So at the end of the day, you should really be optimizing for people above all other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like question number one is, where do you find good people, right? Question number two is, how do you know if they're any good, and how long should you wait to kind of have them stick around? And also, and I think another thing that we all struggle with as maybe employers or business owners is when you bring on somebody and you're thinking to fire them, for example, because you decided that, oh, maybe this is not the best fit. You always look at yourself: was I good at training them? Did I really help them to shine? So there's all of these kind of hiring, firing, promoting type of decisions that we have to make, and it's hard to know which is which and what's what. And I used to hire on freelance websites, then I've moved on to hiring, let's say, on LinkedIn or other websites like that, which have been more successful. But still, the vetting process can be rigorous. And I think that the biggest thing that I've encountered is um, who to hire, what position first,
Yeah.
right? And we were talking kind of off live a little bit about that process, and one thing unlocks the next thing, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of questions there, but they're all kind of the same question in a sense that they really all point back to a few key pieces. And first off, it's really hard to hire the right people if you don't have a very defined culture. And I think that a lot of us we start businesses with the idea of like, oh, this is the product or this is the service, but we kind of forget that we have to actually define who the business is first. Because once you define who the business is, you know what your core values are, you know what you believe in, you know the direction you're going in. That makes it much easier for everything downstream to happen afterwards. It makes it much easier to hire people because you say, oh, well, now I know what type of person will thrive in this environment versus what type of person will not. Here are the types of things that we need to be aligned on versus here are the types of things that don't really matter so much. It's very common if we start a business again, producing a product or delivering a service, we just look for people who are good at doing that thing. And then, I think lots of people listening to this right now will say, I remember when I hired this person and they were so good. And yet, like, they were awful. They were such a bad fit. Everyone hated working with them. It was so hard to even think about firing them because they made me so much money, but also they made it so that people were always quitting and I was always having to hire more people, or they were pissing the clients off, or they were doing this or doing that. It's like, well, okay, we need to actually come back to those core tenets of like, first off, what is the identity of the business? What does the business believe? And then distill that into, actually blueprints for the people that we want to hire. So now we can say, oh, before I hire this person, here is what their mission is going to be. Here is how I'm going to measure them. Here are the outcomes. Here are the KPIs. Most of us, our first probably 5 or 10 hires didn't have that. We just hired someone like, I need a media buyer. And then you hire a media buyer. And then 6 months later, you're like, I think they're kind of helping me because I'm not looking at those accounts, but I'm not really sure if things are actually going well because I don't actually have a system to actually measure that. I didn't start the relationship proactively saying, this is your mission. Here's how you're being measured. Here's how we'll both know, not just me, but we'll both know whether you are successful or not successful. Here is how often we're going to meet to actually review this, so I can give you feedback, and you can also give me feedback because I need feedback as a leader. Here are the competencies you need to have, and then one of the key pieces is, because we have our core values and we have our culture and our identity. Here is what our core values look like in action in your role. And so these are all those sort of like core things that kind of answer a bunch of those questions that you asked, which is like, where do you find people? Well, you don't need to look where so much as you need to know the kinds of people. Like, if you know the kind of person, or what alignment looks like, that's going to tell you where you're going to find those people as well, right? There's going to be certain people that hang out in this kind of place versus that kind of place. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Upwork? Are they in Facebook groups? Are they primarily on Instagram? Maybe they're in school groups. Like, maybe the kind of person that you're looking for is only going to come via referral. But that's all going to be defined by who are we, what do we care about, how do we see the world, what does alignment look like, what do we do, etc. So
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like if you're thinking to give, let's say, a portion of your company to a super high level person, right? That's going to be responsible for many things, almost as responsible as you as the founder, right? You want to find that person maybe through a personal network because that person is going to handle a lot. You really trust that person, or you just find somebody randomly and spend a lot of time with them. But that, there's a shortcut to that, I guess, through referral network or personal private network versus somebody who's like customer service or, kind of handling more like administrative things. It's easier to find somebody who can maybe hire some fees or whatever it may be. And does it really matter, if they're coming out of Latin America or the Philippines
yeah. Yeah.
or wherever? Like, does
Yeah.
does that make a big difference?
And I mean, it can, and it also might not. It's also really going to depend. Again, it's going to depend on less on deliverable these days, because we all have access to the same free information. Like, everybody can go out and get a free MBA. Everyone can go out and basically they have all the same. The most junior media buyer. I'm going to keep using that example because it's very easy. The most junior media buyer has access to the exact same information as like the top senior media buyer at the top agency or whatever. Now, like, they have the playing field is completely level now. So we don't necessarily need to say, oh, I can only find this kind of media buyer here or this kind of media buyer there or whatever. But it is going to come down to culture again. Like, you might say, I really want someone who is unemotional and only cares about the facts, and it's going to be very, very analytical, and it's going to be very direct with me, and they're going to call me out when I have bad ideas. Okay, so in that case, and I'm going to make some generalizations here, but in that case, I might want to look somewhere in Europe, maybe like Germany or like the Netherlands, or where people are just the culture is much more just direct, versus the Philippines. I hire lots of people from the Philippines, but I will say culturally, it's much more sort of like timid and withheld, and they're not necessarily going to want to tell you things that might upset you, versus other cultures are happy to. So you might say, oh, well, based on this kind of role and what our culture is like we have a very no bullshit culture. Okay, so I'm going to look for no bullshit people. Where can I find more no bullshit people? Oh, maybe it's going to be out of this company. Maybe it's going to be out of this sector. Maybe it's going to be out of this country, etc. Right? So just sort of different ways that you can source people. You mentioned in terms of, or you're asking in terms of, hiring people and referrals, etc. And so I love to walk people through just like my basic hiring framework, because I think it's very, very helpful. Once you find out where you want to source people from, you don't want to spend an entire week just sifting through resumes and going blue in the face and not even really sure what you saw. I don't know if you've ever posted a job on LinkedIn, but a number of my clients have recently, and they say, I got 600 applications. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with that. And what I say is nothing. Like, you're not going to do anything with that. There's literally nothing you're going to do with that. The best thing you can do, and this is, I think, where a lot of people screw up, is add as much friction as possible to the hiring process, because you want to remove the people that don't have the capacity to do a little bit of work to actually work with you, that don't actually care enough to work with you. So I always like to cast a wide net, but then put an initial barrier of like, this job on this job board, applying to this job board isn't actually the application. For the first application is read through the job post, and there's actually a link to where the real application is. So if you actually read the full job post, you find the real link, you click the link, and then now you actually apply. And for me, I like to set that up on like an internal thing like Airtable or maybe even Google Sheet or something, but have a form where, okay, now this is the real application. These are the only resumes that I even look at. Or maybe we create an automated AI system to kind of like look for specific things within that resume, like there needs to be experience in this, this, and this, whatever. But so we've already removed that realistically 90% of people who are just going to waste your time and you were never going to have the time to look through those resumes. So you have that, and then you send those people who actually found the correct application, you send them an invite to an asynchronous video interview where it's you asking 5 to 10 very, very targeted questions related to how the job gets done that you're going to be hiring them for. And in this, you're seeing how credible they are. Do they talk about what they're doing credibly? Are they reading the screen? If they're reading the screen, then right away, you know, oh, maybe this person doesn't really know what they're talking about. You're looking to see if they took this seriously, if they were prepared, and this also saves you doing the dreaded 15 to 30-minute screening interview, where the minute you hop on the screening interview, you're like, oh, this is a waste of time. I could have had my afternoon back. And it takes the pressure off of them because they're not on camera in front of you trying to prove themselves. They're just answering a bunch of questions. And so, you know, very, very early on, say you had 100 applicants, realistically 15 to 20 of those people are going to actually go to the proper application. Of that, maybe 5 to 10 of them are people that you're going to send the asynchronous video interview to. Maybe of that, maybe 2 to 5 of those people are actually going to be people that you want to have a one-on-one interview with. So then you have the one-on-one interview with them. And then if you like those people, say maybe 2 or 3 of those people you actually like, then you say, okay, I want to do some kind of like test project or assignment. You have to pay them for it. Like, don't be a jerk. You have to pay them for it. It has to be like a small slice of the work that they're going to be doing for you, so that they get to see, do I like doing this? And you get to see, oh, do I like the way they do this? Do they communicate quickly? Did they get it done fast? Did they spot areas where maybe I didn't give them enough information? And did they ask for that information? Or did they just plow through it and make assumptions, which maybe we probably don't want, depending on the industry that we're in? And say from that, you got 1 or 2 people, you're like, you know what? I think these people are kind of good. The final step there that most people skip is check their references. Actually take the time now to like call all their references and actually find out from people that they have worked for, not just colleagues, but people they have worked for. Like, give this person a rating out of 10, and then you'll get anywhere from like, I've got 5s before. Obviously, that's someone that I know I'm not going to move forward with. I would have if I hadn't have done the reference check. But if I get a 5 out of 10, I'm going to think, probably not. But you also ask questions like, would you hire this person again? And if the person hesitates, that's cause for concern. If the person right away says yes in a heartbeat, I offered them a job and they turned me down to come work for you, that's happened in the past. So I've been like, oh, that is a key hire. And that person, for example, that example person is 3 years later still with us. So I mean, the system works. But the reference check is the final piece, and that is very, very key. If you hire based on a referral, the temptation is going to be to skip all of this. You don't want to skip that just because there's a referral, because again, the person referring that employee to you comes from a completely different business, from a completely different business culture. They might see things in a very, very different way. And to them, a 10 out of 10 to you might actually be a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And you have to decide, is that what we want? So very long-winded answer to to your hiring question there.
I love it. That's very helpful. I think that that's a clever way to basically extract the 3 to 5 best people from a list of 600 randos that, like, you know, just at some point you just like don't even know what you're looking at anymore, right? So
They all start looking the same. I've hired so many people, and it took me, let's be honest, probably like 400 or 500 hours of wasted time to sort of figure this out. Just week after week of going through resumes, and at the end of the week being like, did I even see anybody good? Did I even see anybody not good? I don't even know what I looked at. I just seen so many resumes, and you kind of just go blue in the face and cross-eyed. You don't know what's going on anymore.
So what's the biggest bottleneck that you're seeing? Because you have clients across different agencies, maybe different business models and everything. What's the biggest bottleneck to growth that you're seeing?
It's super, super easy because it's prolific, and it's a huge issue. And it's not even just agencies, but agencies are my specialty. It's the founder being the bottleneck, the founder being the chief problem solver, the person who at the end of the day kind of has to swoop in and either approve everything or hop on client calls or close every client. Basically, at the end of the day, us as founders, like we're entrepreneurs first. We started this business. We believed in it. It's our baby. We care about it more than anybody else. And at the very start, especially, we get a lot of fulfillment out of being the most important person, being super important. Like when people first start asking you for approvals, it kind of makes you feel good. You're like, oh yeah, that one, yes, that one, no. And eventually you start to resent that. Eventually you start to think, like, I have this team of like 15 people and they're always coming to me asking me, should I do this? Should I do that? Don't they know by now what good looks like? Well, if you haven't actually defined on paper objectively what good looks like, they probably actually like the idea of not having the responsibility of making that final call. They probably like the idea that at the end of the day, it's your final call. And, I was just doing what the boss told me. And it's very easy for us founders to really start to resent our team because of that, but that's not their fault at all. It's actually our fault. We've trained them. We've trained them to say that, like, don't worry, I'm the agency. You're just helping me, but I am the agency. We are not the agency. I am the agency. And so that is the biggest issue in agencies today is since we don't have our culture, we don't necessarily have a defined ICP, we don't have financial visibility, we don't have processes defined, we don't have the playbook, no one's getting managed. At the end of the day, it's just like one frantic founder, kind of semi-stressed out or fully stressed out, 12 to 14 hours a day, depending on the people that I talk to, running around saying, I know that I need to create systems and processes. I know that I need to create an onboarding flow. I know I need to do this, but I don't have time. Well, yeah, silly. You don't have time because you never did these things to begin with, and now you won't slow down to speed up, right? One analogy that I use so often, I've probably said this 5 or 6 times on my podcast now, is it's like you're in a bicycle race and you have flat tires and you're pedaling as hard as you can and you're barely moving and everyone's passing you. And someone says, hey, you should maybe stop, get off your bike and pump up your tires and then ride. And you're like, no, I can't afford to slow down and pump up my tires. And they're like, well, if you were to pump up your tires, you'd be going as fast as everybody else. But because you won't, you're never going to get to the end. You're just never going to get to the finish line. And also you're working way harder than you need to do. And you're hating every second of it.
Makes sense. So, we're always told what sells, especially in the beginning, is kind of like this like founder-led, founder-face business. And I think that there is a disconnect there where you can still be the face of your company, especially if it's a small company. But what happens on the back end is very process oriented, and you're really there to drive the business forward with the face being there, right? Showing up for everybody, but having those strong systems behind you. But sometimes, like, here's I'm not going to say argument, but here's kind of like not necessarily pushing back, but my approach to it also has been, if you have things too systematized or too process oriented, does it kill the heart of the business by kind of like, if you're saying that you're a boutique company, right? You're a boutique offering, you're really white glove, you're really custom tailored, right? You're using those types of keywords to sell the service because that's what you might be. But then if you have really rigid systems behind it, then can you still be a boutique offering?
I love this question because it comes back to the first principles again. It's like, well, what kind of business do you want to be? Okay, so if we want to be this boutique, customized white label business, or not, sorry, white glove business, not white label. Okay, well then, what do the roles look like, and what kinds of people am I looking for? Like, you build the process or the playbook for the for the type of team that you want to have, right? If you want to hire people who can make a lot more judgment calls, then you're hiring higher level people. You are saying, here is, like, everybody needs a playbook. Just depends on how detailed you and systematized you want that playbook to be. But you're saying, here's the playbook, here are the non-negotiables, here are your guardrails. Just play within them. I hired you because I trust your expertise. I think that if it's creative, I think that you have good creative taste, which you can't really train, right? It's just, I hired you because you have the taste. I hired you because you have a track record of the last 10 years of like success after success after success. So here are your guardrails. Play within these, go wild. But it's going to depend on the agency. It's going to depend on, again, what's the culture? What are the expectations of the role? And then build the processes to support that. That's one thing that I think a lot of people get wrong. A lot of founders say, things are chaos. I need SOPs and processes. But they don't necessarily, again, they don't have the foundation. They don't have like here's who the agency is and here's what the rules are. They just create a bunch of to-do lists, a bunch of checklists, and then they hand them off to other people. and nobody follows them. And it's because there's a disconnect. The founder's like, here's how I think the work should be done. Meanwhile, the people are like, I've never done the work this way. Why would I follow this checklist now? I have a completely different way that I do the work.
So do you get the people to make their own checklists?
Absolutely, 100%. The people who do the work should actually create the processes and the SOPs. They're the ones doing the work. And if you want to just keep on doing more of that and you want to scale what you already have, then do that. Another great thing about that is that acts as if you've never defined your processes before, that acts as like your first introductory process audit, because now you as the founder can look and be like, oh, this is what you're doing. Oh, okay, well, I haven't been super happy with how X is happening. So why don't we, when you do this in this step, why don't you do that instead? Or maybe we should add an extra step here. So now you can actually look at how the sausage is being made and make changes, rather than just being like, you were doing it this way, now I want you to do it that way. And then either nobody does it or chaos ensues and you have to retrain everybody on the new way and everything stops or grinds to a halt.
Love it. This is all very insightful. Sean, if somebody wanted to kind of get more insight or get help, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, you can go to agencyuplift.co. That's my website, but I do something called a agency diagnostic, something that agencies pay me for, but I also do a mini one, which is free. It's basically a short 3 to 5 minute questionnaire, and then it's a mini diagnostic, and it will basically give you, based on your answers, what your key bottleneck is and how to fix it. I think the agency game is basically death by 1,000 tiny cuts, and so we need to know where to start, what problem to solve, which then unlocks the next thing, which then unlocks the next thing. So if you go to agencyuplift.co/mini, and you can actually get your free mini diagnostic. And we also have a podcast, the Agency Uplift podcast. You can check that out. So on Spotify, Apple, etc. We actually have an episode with Pasha on it already. It was an awesome episode. And that's, I'm also on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm super, super active there as well.
Cool. Once again, Sean, this has been very insightful. I think there's some good nuggets in here that I'm going to take back home with me as well, just to apply that. And I'll definitely check out the diagnostic. So I appreciate your time coming on here, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.